how do you do that? You don't all get around the same computer, do you?
Well, we do. Funnily enough, we're actually going in a couple of weeks on our annual trip away to make music together.
Nice.
We do that every year. We get a cottage and we just hire it out and we just go and make music and get silly for like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Hello, Alex, and welcome to Sola TV. How are you doing today?
Hi, mate. Mates, should I say? Yes, I'm good. Thank you. For you guys.
Yeah, man, all good.
Too bad. First off, you're obviously part of D&B supergroup Data 3. How did you meet Dan and Harry?
Yeah, supergroup. Wow, I like that.
You were a supergroup before you were before you went separate, didn't you?
Yeah. I suppose
Sola stuff came later.
Yeah, we are going to make a comeback at some point for sure. But yeah, how did I meet Dan and Harry? Gosh, I remember Harry was already producing drum and bass when he was like 8 years old. No, maybe a bit of an exaggeration. I was about 13 or 14 at the time, and he'd already been making it a few years. And at the time, I was just starting to DJ quite a lot. I think I started when I was about 12, 13. So yeah, by 14, I was kind of into it on the old belt drives. And one of my mates who was in Harry's year at school said, "Oh, have you heard this guy called Harry's songs? He's called Bryzone." In days before Sola and Bryson. And yeah, I remember just going up to him in the humanities corridor and be like, "Oh, are you Bryzone, Harry Bryson? You know, you made these tunes." And he's like, "Yeah." You know, like diving Harry. And we bonded really quickly after that. I asked him if he could show me how to make some tunes and started going up to his dad's house. And yeah, one thing led to another in terms of me and him. We started off making dubstep together under the name Serum.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, we had quite a few releases, even old records. I've only got like a couple of dubstep releases, and we were one of them. And yeah, I think that sort of petered out once we met Dan. And we met Dan because we went to DJ at his 18th party, me and Harry, as Serum, and we played a set, and he really liked it. Apparently I was on the microphone by the end of the night.
A lot of something people might not know about you.
So yeah, that was one of those ones where I ended up on that. And apparently I was shouting obscenities at his parents at the end of the party. But yeah, somehow he still wanted to be with us. And from that, we kind of started making music as Serum. He kind of just joined the fold. But after a while, I think we were all getting a little bit not fed up of dubstep, but I think at that point it was changing. It was kind of like the music of our early use for our particular group. But drum and bass was always around. And I think that the drum and bass dubstep came and went, and we certainly rode that wave. We went off it as quickly as we came into it. And I think it all just kind of fell into that we were just getting all into much more into drum and bass.
Yeah.
So we basically just was sat at Harry's computer one day in Harry Potter's broom cupboard, we used to call it, because it was a tiny little music studio that we could all just about fit in. And we were like, "Oh, we should start making drum and bass. We should probably have a different name." We needed the name. Looked down at the keyboard, and on one of the keys on big MIDI keyboard, it said Data 3. And I went, "Data 3? And Harry said, "Oh yeah, Data sounds quite drum and bass." And Dan said, "Oh, and there's 3 of us." So,
I was always low-key a little jealous of that name. It was just perfect. It's the most drum and bass name, and it suits the 3 of you so perfectly.
Yeah, thanks. No, it was, it took no effort at all, which is, which is really nice. I think when it comes together like that, and you're not having to think about it for ages, it just was just meant to be.
So my favourite story to actually Data 3 is the fact that you bootlegged Up All Night by John B, which is a label notoriously where Goldie doesn't take kindly to bootlegs, but you ended up being majestically getting an actual official release on there. Can you tell us this story a bit more in detail and how it happened?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So, I mean, I am a bit worried that because I'm going to watch Goldie at the Golden Lion in Tomodon in a couple of weeks, I am a bit worried about introducing myself again, because you never know what's going to happen. But no,
I think you'll be okay now.
I hope so. I think the thing with that remix was that we learnt our lesson from the comics bootleg, which I think we didn't handle the best it could have been handled.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just that time when everyone was bootlegging tunes, and I think we were a bit young and we kind of didn't know that wasn't really on, and so we didn't ask for permission or anything. I'm not sure how many people do, but I think it is, respectful to at least ask if you're gonna put out a bootleg and stuff for free download. And
like Metalheadz, especially as a label, you might want to check.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think everyone would mind, but I think certain tunes and certainly have a certain prestige. It's best to ask first.
Yeah.
We didn't with the comics bootleg, but with the with the Metalheadz John B one, we actually only sent it to John B first, and we said we're not going to send this to anyone. We've done this because our mate Paolo, who was a really good friend of ours, showed us a few bits and bobs, and unfortunately he's not with us anymore. But yeah, we really got on with him, and he said, "Oh, you should do the Up All Night bootleg," and so we only sent it to John. And because we only sent it to John, I think then it was able to go through official channels, because it hadn't been leaked out onto the market like with the other ones. There was an element of, well, fair enough, and I think we just went the right way about it, and it just goes to show that when you do things the right way, good things can happen, I think.
Makes for a great story as well, I think. Like, that's only happened a handful of times. Like, Unglued with Hospital is the only one I can think of, really, where it ended up being a bootleg on the official channel.
I think Slater might have had one for V, but I'm not sure. That's unconfirmed. But I think there's something like that that happened with Slater.
I think one happened the other day with Eiffel 65, I'm Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die. They
Really?
and they were like, yeah, sure, that can be an official remix. It was like a jump up one, and they posted going, you're never going to believe this. My Eiffel 65 bootleg is going to be an actual.
That's amazing.
No, I mean, just to go back to the comics bootleg, we actually get held to rights by, I did, by DJ Storm.
Why? What happened? If that's you lost.
Well, I don't think she'd mind. She was very forthcoming with her opinion, which I respect. And that was when we picked her up to play for one of our Kodiak gigs from the airport. And we were just kind of talking and said, "Oh, so do you make music?" Yeah, data free. Oh, you're the one that stole that tune.
Oh, that's a little harsh, isn't it? To the promoter picking up at the airport as well. But I mean, fair play.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think it was a good point that it brings up a very good question of stealing, and obviously music is recycling and sampling is a massive thing, and you only have to listen to Radio 1 for a couple of minutes before you'll hear like a famous sample being used in a modern relic on a pop tune.
Yeah.
Electronic music has always been sampling and remixing and refixing and stuff like that. But no, I think it's right to call it out and ask, did you have permission and would you be happy with it? And I think you've just got to, everyone's got a personal opinion of it. But it's certainly good to keep thinking about it for sure. Yeah,
you handled it as well as you could, and it worked out for you, really. I've got one more Data 3 based question. So, like the first couple of releases you put out with us, like Dank and Dynasty, if you don't mind me delving that far into the history books, they were pretty dance floor, and they had like trance leads, and they sound nothing like what you make now. So, did that evolve? Was that always the plan to go a bit darker and more deeper, or how did it go?
I think that when we were first signed to you guys and we were releasing those kind of tunes, we were still coming out of our dubstep phase.
Right.
And dubstep at the time was just going through that American transformation where it was going quite bro-steppy, quite screechy. And there was a lot of elements of that dubstep we did like. I mean, we obviously loved the deeper stuff and we'd always had love for that. But we also always had love for the sort of wobblier, dirtier side. And I think that's at first in the Data Free songs, it did translate into them. And whilst those songs might not sound anything like the ones we do at the moment, tunes that we were also releasing at the time, maybe more would sound like a Data Free song that you'd perhaps think of today. I'm thinking of like Solar Space and I can't remember the A side of that, but Funk Bear, which was on Solvent, I believe. and I think that we really like that trancey feel, and actually, without saying too much, there may be a dark data-free dance floor song on the way.
Oh, wait, let's go.
Yeah. So that's kind of coming back. I think we've always kind of liked dance floor, but I think you've always got to remember as well that there's a bit of conflict now with Polar and Bryson, where we've got to make sure that the data-free sound is different to the Polar and Bryson sound, different to the Mark Dinimal sound, and that's kind of, I think, started to shape the more data 3 sound in recent years, along with that kind of pocket that we found with Flex out there we've been releasing on quite consistently for the last couple of years, which was a kind of techno inspired D&B. Whereas I think back then we were just kind of a bit more young and I think we were back there. I think we're just going through different phases, and I still listen to Dynasty and stuff like that.
Dynasty's still got a place in my heart, man, and forever will.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, you mentioned the other two, but also obviously you've got to keep it separate from the stuff you're doing as somebody else.
Oh, yeah, no, and I think the somebody else stuff is, well, I think that's a byproduct of those guys being quite busy with their own solo aliases, and me as well with my like Kodiak Productions and Rebellion and Data Free as well. I just needed somewhere that I can put out music without it going round and round.
Yeah.
I do love making music with Data Free, but because and I think it's great having 3 opinions on it, but because we're very rarely together, a lot of the time the tunes can go round and round and round and get changed like a gazillion times, whereas sometimes it's nice to get a tune, make it, put it out, different things on it.
How do you find the workflow and creative process of producing alone compared to working with the boys?
Personally, I prefer working with other producers. That's why I enjoy like working with Connor and Sam Masters and yourself back in the day. I find that personally I'm quite I jump from things, I get sidetracked quite easily. That's why I like to have a lot of different projects that I can focus bits of my day on, and I find that I produce like that as well. So I find that working with someone else that can really kind of take over and keep the ball rolling whilst I maybe get distracted and then come back into it, I find that works well for me. And I do find it hard to finish tunes on my own. But, that's why the alias is there, is to try and keep that going.
Well, yeah, I mean, I completely understand. I can't remember the last tune that I finished on my own. I sacked off the Nothing to Lose stuff, and I've just been making stuff with the boys as solo. I find it's so good to just, have someone else who cares about the tune getting finished apart from yourself. Like, the solo stuff, only you care that tune gets finished. And there's a lot of stuff that you don't do for yourself that you will do for a team. But there was one more question I had about somebody else, and that is, where did the name come from?
Okay, so well, obviously Polar and Bryson have got really quite famous now, and so kind of people understood that it was Bryson, and then Dan, I think things really picked up for him when he changed his name from his old name Mida to Mark Dinimal, because it really rolled off the tongue and he had his sound carved out, and I think things really started to pick up for him. So all of a sudden Data Free kind of went from this collective of a single entity to 3 producers kind of putting music into one pot, and those 2 kind of had a name. And I've always liked making music, but I've certainly been dragged in the last few years to focusing on the music programming side of things, and I do hope to jump back in feet first into the music properly again in the not too distant future. But with those guys developing their own aliases, it was kind of like, I saw comments on Facebook like it's Bryson, Mark Dinimal and some other guy.
Yeah. So it's self-deprecating humor.
Totally.
Well, it's just making a joke, really. It was kind of, it could have been some other guy, someone else,
the third man,
Bryson, Mark Dinimal, and somebody else, and then who's the other person? Oh, it's someone else.
That's pretty cool, man.
It's funny, yeah. You mentioned your other commitments. How did you get involved with Rebellion, and what are your plans for its future?
Yeah, okay. So Rebellion is it's a live music venue and nightclub in the city centre of Manchester. It's got quite a good drum and bass following there. It's had quite a lot of drum and bass nights, and you guys coming over in a couple of weeks to do it. Well, not too is it for your.
Oh yeah, 25th of March, Joe Ford and Ways.
Very excited for that. And I just basically a couple of years ago, I just finished a freelancing job working for someone else doing events, and then I saw that basically the old event manager of Rebellion had done something very stupid and had been fired. And I just thought, why not? I popped an email to Rebellion's email saying, "Hi guys, I've noticed that you've down an event manager. I've literally just finished a contract. So I've got quite a lot of contacts within the club scene in Manchester, and I'm a DJ. Would you be interested in having my CV?" They said yeah. I went in for an interview and I took over programming. Shortly after that, I had about 6 months of programming before the pandemic, unfortunately. And then the music venue was kind of shut down for 2 years. Without going into too much details, because it's it could be a bit messy, but unfortunately my boss decided to leave the country during the pandemic, and some furlough went missing, along with a couple of the other staffs. Again, I won't mention too much, but it basically provided an opportunity for me and a couple of the other guys to take over the venue ourselves, which we didn't really want to do. In all honesty, I'd kind of just wanted to work for someone else for a bit, but when Bale kind of turned around and said, "Look, if you want to take on this lease of this venue, you can do." And we were like, "Bloody heck!" So we got a business plan together, and me and the other guys chipped in, and we've taken over a music venue in the middle of a pandemic.
So my last question is carrying on from that, basically, because Rebellion was forced to close, wasn't it? And during two of the worst possible times. It was during the lifting of lockdown and the first Freshers Week back, wasn't it? So how's the build back been after that?
Yeah, okay. So obviously the pandemic forced us to close, and then that was pretty terrible. We tried to do a few lockdown sit down things, which were quite good fun, and it was nice to see people enjoy themselves in the middle of the pandemic as best they could, but it was just not great. And then as soon as we were kind of getting ready to reopen on that big Freedom Day, as it was coined, unfortunately we found out Network Rail needed to come in and do emergency repair works to the venue because it was underneath a train station, and they basically demolished like half of the venue. So just as all the other clubs were opening into a big boom, we just were closed for like 3 months longer, which was really horrible. But
critical times as well.
Yeah, and like you say, it's the Freshers Week, so because you're not on their radar, you then suffer for the whole year, and there's nothing we could do about it. But no, slowly building back, and we're just really thankful that we got through winter. It was a bit on the edge, but we're kind of out the other side now, we hope, touch wood, and we've just got to try and keep ploughing on, get through this year. And already we've fixed the toilets again now. We're just starting to put new lighting in there and built a new room. I think that in the short to medium term for Rebellion, it's just about getting really two well kitted out rooms that are really nice to have different varieties of music in, make sure that we've always got live gigs going on, and club nights on the weekend. And we've got new residencies starting in terms of house residencies and drum and bass nights, and it's all just getting going, really. This is kind of feels more like the start, whereas before kind of felt like the false start. And I think the whole team are just really excited to get going with it.
That's brilliant, man. You know how much we both love Rebellion as well, so that's fucking great news.
Oh, guys, I've just realised I wasn't recording. I'm going to have to start again.
See, it's recording again. I know you'd like joking face as well.
Take 3.
It came up with and saying this video is now being recorded.
Yeah, it literally pops up. We had to click to say we were.
All right.
No, Alex, thanks so much, bro.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Alex.
No, and really good to catch you guys.
Really good.
Yeah, man. We'll hope to see you soon.
And we'll see you on the 25th of March.